When President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill was signed into law earlier this month, one thing which was now set to take a hit is the payments from Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP benefits. Kiplinger reports that as a result of the bill, SNAP program funding will be cut by 20%. That'll lead to the loss of an estimated $230 billion over 10 years. Work requirements are expanded to cover adults up to age 64. That's up from 50 years old, and parents with children ages 14 and older. States will also be required to shoulder a greater share of the SNAP cost or risk losing federal support entirely. Here with more perspective is Craig Gundersen, an economic professor at Baylor University in Texas, who's actually in California right now. He's also the creator of Feeding America's MAP Meal Gap Project. Welcome to the show.
Great. Thank you so much. My daughter lives there in Atlanta and enjoys your show, so I'm really happy to be on it this morning.
Man, thank you for joining us. Yes, and thank you for that. Appreciate it. Let's start off with your reaction of the scale of these SNAP cuts.
Okay, so I'm a huge fan of SNAP. SNAP is the most successful government program at alleviating food insecurity in our country. It's a critical component of our social safety net. And as you may know, in 2021, there was a large increase in SNAP benefits, which really benefited this program. These cuts could potentially be of worry, but from my perspective is a lot of these cuts really won't either take place for a couple of years now or just involve switching the costs from the federal government onto states. So from my perspective is on the ground, this won't have much of an impact in the near term. And then in a couple of years, we can kind of see what's going to happen.
Are you saying that because the states would just have to kick in the cost? I mean, would it just take that much time for the federal cuts to be felt?
Right. There's two things about that. The first thing is with respect to the cuts is it used to be 100% of all SNAP benefits in Georgia were funded by the federal government. Now what's going to happen is in a state like Georgia, I don't know the exact amount, but Georgia would have to pick up 10 to 20% of the cost of SNAP benefits, which would then, but they would still have to pay those costs. So in other words, instead of the federal government paying it, Georgia is paying it, and that could cause some issues in Georgia. Absolutely. The work requirements do not come into place for a couple of years yet, so we'll have to wait to see what those impacts are.
Gotcha. All right, walk us through. Families are just barely getting by now, and so when you get these cuts into place, what could be taking place after that?
So my main concern is whenever I like to talk about some of these issues is one of the key determinants of food insecurity in the United States are food prices. So what we want to do is to really make sure food prices stay low. Atlanta has relatively low food prices, which is fantastic, but making efforts to keep food prices low is critical. When food prices do rise, SNAP plays a particularly important role because it allows families to purchase food that they otherwise wouldn't be able to purchase. We saw the critical role that SNAP played during the food price inflation in 2022 and 2023. And so if anything impedes that ability for SNAP to step in during hard economic times, that's really going to be a problem. My hope is that SNAP will still serve as a critical component of the social safety net, but the main thing is that there'll be work requirements in a couple of years that are binding, but also in the near term, let's hope that Georgia continues to encourage people to be on SNAP and to enroll in SNAP.
Yeah. Ahead of the bill being signed, the White House put out this statement on SNAP benefits being impacted. Let's take a listen. Only 28% of able-bodied adults on SNAP work. The One Big Beautiful Bill promotes work, responsibility, and restores SNAP to serve the truly needed. SNAP enrollments remain high even in a strong economy, including millions of able-bodied adults who could work. What is your reaction to this?
I don't like that terminology that they're using in the following sense, is that there are some assistance programs which do discourage work. For example, if you make $1 more than the threshold, you lose all your benefits. SNAP isn't like that. With SNAP as my income increases, I get closer to the threshold, my benefit levels fall gradually. So you don't have the sharp, what we call a cliff when you get to the benefit. So SNAP doesn't discourage work. So from my perspective is this whole notion that people aren't working because of SNAP is just false. People may not be working for other reasons, but it's not due to SNAP. So I don't like it that SNAP is the one taking the brunt of this. From my perspective, SNAP is, as I mentioned at the outset, an anti-hunger program, an extraordinarily successful anti-hunger program. It's not a make-work program or an employment program. So from my perspective, these work requirements have no place in the context of SNAP.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm against that.
I got you. What should the average person listening to this right now take away about SNAP and maybe something they didn't know before?
I think the most important thing people should come away from SNAP is that this is an amazingly successful government program. I'm not a fan of all government programs. Some work well, some work not quite as well. But SNAP, study after study after study, has shown that this is an extraordinarily successful program at alleviating hunger in America, and we need to keep this program strong and in good shape.
All right, Professor Greg Gundersen, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for your insight. Really valuable information for us. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much for your interest in this important topic.